e dall'Italia adesso voliamo in Inghilterra, e quindi cambiamo anche lingua, cominciamo a parlare inglese in modo tale che anche la nostra comunità internazionale ci possa ascoltare. So thank you all. We are now taking off in UK, where we have very distinguished guests that I thank a lot also for the patience, because we are a little bit late in this world tour, that is this marathon Food for Earth. And this session is very important for the marathon, because we will have insights on the COP26, and we know that UK government as well as the Italian government play a crucial role in these very important event. So the session is Seeds of the Future, Networks, Food and Sustainability, and the introduction of the session is made by Maria Elena Semedo, that is the Deputy Director General of FAO. We are very proud to have Ms. Semedo with us, and I will leave the floor to her. Thank you.
Colleagues, dear participants, it is a pleasure and an honor to be part of the second edition of the 24-hour Global Digital Marathon on Sustainability, focused on Food for Earth. Many thanks to the Future of Food Institute and colleagues here at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations for having organized this worldwide event. Not only it is a tremendous opportunity to bring together different perspectives, best practices, and new outlooks. It is a chance to rethink our relationship with nature. Unfortunately, I am unable to join you live today to talk to you about climate change and its linkage to sustainability. When we think of Food for Earth, we must think of the agri-food systems that feed the world and how to transform those systems to be more efficient, inclusive, and resilient and sustainable. Agriculture and food systems are the world's largest economic system, measured in terms of employment, livelihoods, and planetary impact. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown how fragile those agriculture and food systems are, and how sensitive our food supply chains can be. The socioeconomic impacts revealed how thin the line is that separates many communities and families from extreme poverty and food insecurity. Building green and inclusive agriculture and food systems is one of the most powerful ways to recover from the current crisis. Green recovery must not be a side effect of business as usual, but a well-intended vision underpinned by a strong environmental, economic, and social sustainability framework that respects the rights of future generations, enhance climate action aimed at carbon neutrality by 2050, and protects biodiversity. To achieve this, we at FAO, with our mandate to end hunger, fight poverty, and sustainably manage natural resources, are guided by the four betters: better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life. Better production means ensuring efficient, sustainable consumption and production patterns, inclusive food and agriculture supply chains at local, regional, and global levels. Better nutrition aims at ending hunger, promoting nutritious foods, and increasing access to healthy diets, which can be fostered by tackling food loss and waste and making sure that markets and trade are accessible and open. Better environment is about protecting, restoring, and promoting sustainable use of terrestrial and marine ecosystems, and combating climate change through reduction, reutilization, recycling, and residual management approaches. A better life implies reducing inequalities between urban and rural, rich and poor, men and women, and promoting inclusive economic growth. To reach these aspirations, we must, all of us together, overcome complex and intertwined challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is impacting ecosystem service, on which long-term sustainability of food production and food security is dependent. In many regions, agricultural production is already adversely affected by climate variability. Climate change is expected to hit developing countries the hardest, economically crippling vulnerable, poor, agriculture-dependent communities. Against the backdrop of varied economic, environmental, social, political, and demographic change, hunger is rising under a warming climate, and estimates suggest that COVID-19 will push some 150 million people into extreme poverty this year. Just consider these points. Highly degrading and polluting agricultural practices are responsible for 60% of global biodiversity loss on land, 33% of degraded soils, 61% of the depletion of commercial fish stocks, 20% overexploitation of the world's aquifers, and 2/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change. Food systems currently consume 30% of the world's available energy. 5 of the top global risks, extreme weather, climate action failure, human environmental damage, infectious diseases, and biodiversity loss, are directly linked to unsustainable food systems. Biodiversity is in alarming decline, with 1 million species at risk of extinction, 2 billion hectares of land degraded, and 2/3 of the ocean adversely affected by human disturbance. Moreover, among the 7 key drivers of emerging zoonotic diseases, like the virus causing COVID-19, 6 are directly related to the dire state of our global food systems. And the antimicrobials used in humans and animals are contributing to a rise in antimicrobial resistance. This threat could itself turn into the next pandemic, with serious implications for global health, agri-food systems, and economies. Our current food systems are neither profitable nor sustainable. The hidden cost of global food and land use systems amount to 12 trillion, compared to a market value of global food systems of $10 trillion. FAO estimates that it takes about 1.5 billion hectares, or 30% of the world's agricultural land, and 6% of total water withdrawals to produce food that is lost or wasted, costing us $1 trillion every year. Ladies and gentlemen, with upwards of more than half of global GDP dependent on nature, it is clear that our health and well-being, including the achievement of our sustainable development, climate change, and biodiversity goals, depend on our natural capital. The bottom line, it is time to rethink our relationship with nature and how we process and consume our food. Agriculture and food systems must transform to feed a growing population and provide healthy, affordable diets for everyone. We need to do so in a way that is at the same time economically profitable and environmentally friendly. And we can, by restoring the health and productivity of degraded terrestrial, freshwater, and marine ecosystem. We can reduce the loss of biodiversity, mitigate and adapt to climate change, and create jobs and livelihoods, thereby addressing the biodiversity, climate change, and economic crisis. Restoring degraded global grasslands would bring climate and production co-benefits, as they are estimated to contain nearly 50% more carbon than is stored in forests worldwide. Enabling low-carbon livestock through better management of carbon and nitrogen cycles and regenerative grazing practices could reduce net emission from livestock systems by about 20 to 30%, while significantly improving soil health and their potential to absorb carbon and produce more nutritious food. A circular bioeconomy using biological, social, and institutional innovation can promote the sustainable recovery, the use and recycling of organic material and nutrients, cut food loss and waste, and increase resource use efficiency. With innovation, smart data, and strategic investments, we can help countries access sustainable energy sources and build more sustainable and resilient food systems. FAO has been supporting countries to integrate energy innovation in the agri-food value chain. We need to integrate agriculture and food systems into policies and strategies. FAO firmly believes that nature and agriculture can provide valuable solutions to reducing climate risks and is working closely across countries and regional, national and local scales to harness this potential. In line with our corporate climate change strategy, FAO supports countries in defining, implementing, and revising national determined contribution and national adaptation plans. Indeed, we have been actively engaged in supporting countries to advance international discussions on agriculture and climate change, especially since the adoption of the Coroneva Joint Work on Agriculture at the 2017 UN Climate Conference, which put agriculture at the center of the international climate agenda. With rapid urbanization and population growth, we know that well-managed cities can be positive forces for adaptation and resilience. FAO's Green Cities initiatives, targeting urban and peri-urban communities, aims to expand the benefits of green spaces to city dwellers and to boost their contribution to sustainable food systems. And let's not forget youth and innovation. Faos acknowledged the need to make our food systems fit for purpose, to attract and support the next generation of sustainable food producers and actors. Ladies and gentlemen, to move forward, FAO believes that transformed and resilient global agriculture and food system can significantly contribute to reaching the Paris Agreement goals and putting us back on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We also believe in the potential of a bioeconomy that balances economic value and social welfare with environmental sustainability. Finally, we need to maintain biodiversity for food and agriculture and sustainably use, conserve and restore marine, terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems. Global marathons like this one can greatly help pass this important message to a wide audience and policymakers to build a sustainable world. We have the science, the evidence, the technology, and the expertise. The forthcoming United Nations Climate Conference, COP26, and United Nations Food Systems Summit are key occasions to gain more ambitious political will, strengthen strategic partnership, and boost smart-scaled investments. Ingredients that can make a recipe for success. I hope this provides you with food for thought as you consider food of Earth. Wishing you all a fruitful, happy Earth Day 2021. Thank you.
Very inspired by your words and all the insights you have given us. And let me take the opportunity to thank again the FAO, that is the main partner of this initiative. Mrs. Semedo is the Deputy Director General of FAO, and we have had during this marathon 3 Deputy Directors, including Beth Bechdol and Maurizio Martina, that we thank a lot for their prestigious presence. And of course, in the China session, we had the Director General with us. So we are very proud of this partnership, and we thank a lot Mrs. Cristina Petracchi, the leader of the FAO e-learning academy. We are working with a lot also for our boot camps. So I will give the floor now to His Excellency Lord Zach Goldsmith, that is the Minister for Pacific and Environment of the UK government. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you to the FAO and the Future Food Institute. Though I'm unable to join you, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you today. Now, it's tempting to look at the last 40 years or so, when we trebled food production, and imagine that we will be able to accommodate a predicted 9 billion people by 2030 in exactly the same way. But that success has come at a huge cost. And it should be obvious that we cannot continue to produce and consume food in the same way that we've been doing so for the last few decades without causing terrible damage to our planet. Massive soil erosion, hopelessly unsustainable use and pollution of our water, deforestation, and the degradation of carbon-rich natural habitats. The damage done is catastrophic and fundamentally unsustainable. We've seen populations of key species drop by more than 2/3 since the 70s. And just as we've hoovered life out of the ocean, we've filled it with pollution just as quickly. We're losing roughly 30 football pitches worth of forest every single minute. And the human cost is becoming clearer. Poor land use is resulting in diminishing yields for 500 million small farmers. It's also the cause of vast deforestation. Agriculture, forestry, and land use are now the second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions after energy, causing climate change, which in turn means more drought, more floods, crops failing, pests thriving, sea levels rising. So despite all the successes, hunger has been rising since 2014, and today it threatens almost 1 billion people. And we know the problem is only going to become more intense. So we need a radical shift in the way we produce and consume food. And that includes clearly wasting less food. Shockingly, 1/3 of all food today is wasted. And it means getting more good food to those in need. Now, in the big scheme of things, sustainable food, farming and land use is the most important agenda of all. If we get it right, we'll be tackling so many of the biggest challenges we face, reducing hunger, poverty, pollution, and the likelihood of deadly zoonoses like COVID-19, and of course climate change and biodiversity loss, the biggest threats of all, and I believe the defining challenge of our age. So it's absolutely right that climate change is now the UK's top international priority, and that we're putting nature at the heart of our G7 and COP26 presidencies. Globally, nature-based solutions could provide around 1/3 of the most cost-effective solution to climate change. But despite that, nature attracts less than 3% of global climate finance. Our Prime Minister committed last year to doubling our international climate funding to 11.6 billion and to investing at least 3 billion of that on solutions that protect and restore nature. And we're urging other donor countries to do similarly. We're also building alliances of countries committed to breaking the link between commodity production and deforestation, asking producer and consumer countries to work with us to help clean up global commodity supply chains, as we're doing via legislation in the UK. And we're building alliances of countries committed to reorientating support for agriculture. Consider that every year the top 50 food-producing countries pour $700 billion into support for often destructive land use. That's roughly 4 times the world's aid budget combined. So imagine the impact if even part of this could be redirected to help farmers transition to climate-friendly, nature-positive land management. With the Food Systems Summit in sight, none of us can say that we're doing enough, but we look forward to working closely with Italy on the G20 and COP26. And as presidents of the G7 and COP26, the UK is committed to working with you, governments, businesses, NGOs, civil society, north, south, east, west, developing, developed, to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability and renewal. Because we have a chance to make this the year we catalyze a decade of action to help communities on the front line of climate change and environmental degradation protect wonders on which the whole world relies, and to fundamentally reset our relationship with the natural world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that we definitely need more policy makers like Ms. Zach Goldsmith, and his commitment is crucial for tackling the climate crisis. So many speakers, including Mrs. Semedo, have spoken about youth empowerment and innovation. Indeed, this is a beautiful bridge to introduce the next speaker, that is Sophie Charrois. I hope I pronunciate well her surname, the president of Oikos International. Sophie, welcome. Welcome to Food for Earth.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So we are looking forward to learn from you your commitment on this important issue for tackling the climate crisis.
Totally. And yeah, first of all, happy Earth Day to all of you out there. And yeah, I'm so happy actually about this event, and I listened in, and for me it was especially about the moments where you were zooming in, like from the map to the territory, from the white paper to the life that happens at the farmers markets, where the solutions kind of become alive. And yeah, so I believe, first of all, I believe we cannot tell enough of these stories, right, and have these experiences ourselves. And what I want to do today is just add a bit of perspective from the world of higher education and business and economics to the mix, and also my experience with Oikos, a community of student change agents that work hard to transform their own education. Yeah, and I actually would like to pick up the piece from another group of youth that I saw 1 hour ago here. And I was really touched and moved to see this video and to see that it's actually possible to make our education a space not only for learning theory, but experiencing and contributing through our education. And I want to stress this and the importance of it, because how often is it that in our classrooms we are experiencing something very different from that? Like, we might talk about food, we might talk about farmers market, but how often do we stop talking about numbers, right? How much do the numbers tell us about the feeling on the field, or how the food smells and tastes, and what the people experience all along the supply chain? So my question I want to share with you is kind of, how do we bring this quality of experience to our classrooms? Or maybe also, how can we get out of our classrooms more often into the real world more directly? And another thought is, when I've been invited to this event, the first image that was coming up to me was the dinner table, the coffee break, or even the cafeteria in the city. And maybe even more the conversations that we are having over these occasions, and where food really offers this space for us. What I want to link this to is like this sense of care, togetherness, and intimacy, which I feel is so important to make anything happen if we want to move towards sustainability. And it is also the space where we get to the new pathways, where we get the new ideas that are really powerful and that are really needed in these days. So I think we really have the agency to create these spaces, and education should be just the right playground to do that. This is what we do at Oikos, right? We are working towards creating these spaces in our schools, but what actually matters just as much, or maybe I can even say what actually brings the highest value to us as students in this work, and what fuels our work, is these moments of community, the moments where we come together, where we meet as people, exchange our experiences, and see how, despite our differences, we're not alone, and that we're making major steps together into the directions we might not even expect before. So if there is one message I would like to leave you with from working with student change agents and as a student change agent, and this message goes out to all of you there, it would be, we're in this together, and let's be braver in claiming the spaces for actually being together in this, and learn from our experiences and stories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thank you a lot for sharing your thoughts. At Future Food Institute, we also think that education, as Nelson Mandela said, is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. So we totally agree with you. And speaking about innovation and research, let me introduce you a friend of us, Raffaele Majorano, that is the chairman of GFAR, the Global Forum on Agriculture, Research and Innovation of FAO.
Hi, Claudia.
Hi, I'm super happy to have you to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm super honored to be here today, and thank you for inviting us. You are part of GFAR. I'm going to tell you what GFAR is basically, and it's amazing how the relator that talked before me just told us what's the real path, the proper path to follow to change the world in terms of future generation. But actually, to be honest, the actual generation has to change, has to take the advantage of the change. GFAR is a collective movement who's trying to shape the future of agriculture and food. We have more than 600 partners working together across 13 sectors. And we have basically, we put the smallholder farmers at the very center of agricultural innovation, shaping and delivering the opportunities and futures they desire. And we do in a way that follow the claim: we work together to achieve impact, which no one organization can achieve alone. This is our GFAR way. So we work together in a network action with shared ownership. We use innovative partnership approach, leveraging of capacity and resources. Most of the time, we try to agree on setting the agenda together. This is at the very center of our movement, of our approach. Now we are following up with a specific project which I care very, very much, which is a project on forgotten foods. If you consider, I think that during the marathon has been told many times, but 4 food crops: wheat, maize, rice, and soybean provide the 2/3 of the world food supply. There are instead forgotten crops or neglected or underutilized species that which from them derives a lot of food, and they have an immense untapped potential within sustainable food system. Basically, they provide healthy, nutritious food for local communities, resilience to changing weather patterns, climate change, pests and disease, and they are rich in diversity in agrisystem and landscape, and they are at the very center of the protection of farmers' livelihood on the cultural tradition. So we are working in this Forgotten Food Manifesto with a collective action. We call it collective action because it's a collective movement, and there are a lot of partners involved. We are counting that maybe for this Forgotten Food project, we are involving more than 1 billion farmers. We have the Asia Pacific Association of Agricultural Research. We have the Asian Farmer Association for Sustainable Rural Development, the FAA. The Swaminathan Research Foundation, the Swaminathan that took the Nobel Prize a few years ago. The Bali Development Institute for Rural Women. ARENINA, which is the Association of Agricultural Research Institution of Near East and North Africa. And the Alliance of Biodiversity International. Biodiversity, as you know, is hosted in Rome. And the FARA, which is the Forum of Agricultural Research in Africa. And of course, there are FAO, which hosts already in the building our movement, the GFAR, and our main donors who are the European Commission and IFAD. So we are writing this international worldwide manifesto, and we're trying to set up a scientific approach for the manifesto, and we're waiting for the pre-summit in July to present our manifesto in a scientific way. And at the Food System Summit, we're gonna share with the world the manifesto written by farmers for farmers and researchers and innovators. So GFAR is a huge movement, and it's open to everyone. Future Food Institute is part of it. And of course, the doors are open for everyone who wants to change the agriculture and food system. Thank you.
Fantastic, impressive. Congratulations for
5 minutes, as I told you.
Yes, so we
Very
didn't
quick.
had any doubt on this. Straight to the point as usual. So Ags from Pollica, we still are waiting for you here. You already have been here with us during the boot camp.
Oh, it's an amazing place. It was a super experience, and I'm looking forward to be invited in Marettimo, my favorite island.
Of course we will, of course. As you have heard from the climate shaper, Marina Lipari, we will be there from July 13 to 19. You will be our guest. It will be fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raffaele. Thanks a lot also on behalf of the President, Sara Roversi.
Go on with your marathon. Amazing. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao. So very happy to have Raffaele here, and we have discussed about innovation, about sustainable development goals, and so I'm very happy and proud to have here Professor Massimiliano Falcone, that is Professor of Communication for Sustainable Development Goals and one of our main partners and friends of Future Food Institute. Welcome, Max.
Ciao, Claudia. Thank you a lot for having me here and for this great panel, because you were shifting from governments like the UK government, and I was listening to this enthusiasm for the next COP, which is really a shifting point in our history. And Italy has a strong engagement in this new COP because of the Youth for Climate. Other persons during the other panels were speaking of this. And apart from that, it was really amazing for me listening to Raffaele, who is a friend on the other side, and all these innovation for sustainability together with the young generations, so the Oikos International, and last but not least, let's say, maybe the first, what FAO is doing. So in order to close, I don't want to lose time, and just to remember that today is really a particular day, and I'm happy much more because we are speaking of food now, because this Earth Day was born 51 years ago, so last year was the 50th anniversary, in the US because of the industrialization, not speaking of agriculture, but speaking of how the automotive industry, transportation, and oil industry were destroying or risking to destroying the planet Earth. It was the biggest, and is still the biggest civil society movement in the history, because more than 20 million persons were demonstrating on the streets. Nowadays, now in this moment, we are more than 1 billion persons acting together through the digital world because of the COVID, but sharing ideas in order to move from protests like 50 years ago to proposals through new ideas, towards new ideas in order to block climate change and work in the direction of a real sustainable development. But let's say that in the last 20 years, agriculture became something central, a central topic in what the Earth Day was doing during these years. So from let's say the secondary, from the industrial from sector, from factories and the polluting energies and so on, we are now working in what's one of the unlikely main sources or polluters, main causes of climate change, which is how we do not take care of how do we eat and produce what we eat and drink. So in order to close this part, I would like just to add how communication can be fundamental in order to create the appeal of our food and the appeal of how do we live, because food is not just eating or drinking, but is how do we enjoy, is our entertainment, let's say, into something that is driving us towards a new approach to life, because if we start to choose food not just because it's good or because of the brand which is behind of the made in, but looking at the food production chain and how sustainable it is. So if the brand becomes sustainable, we can change our world and really take care of our planet Earth. So I'm, let's say, closing this panel, trying to close this panel, if you agree, with this kind of message that all the main players, and the Future Food Institute is one of the main players for these. One of the main actions that we should achieve and do together is to make sustainable food sexy, cool. If we move towards that direction, our planet Earth could really be protected and happy to be with the human beings here. And just to close, let's work all together towards this youth for climate, because again, as Raffaele was saying, we are not just speaking of farmers, but of the next generation of the young farmers. So again, let's bring this message into the COP, because education for young students is not just education for sustainable development, but is educating the young next generations of farmers, because farming is something that could really change our lives. I stop like this.
I could not be more aligned with you. Thank you so much. Thanks also for reminding us about the earthday.org, that is one of our main partners for this global marathon. And speaking about communication for sustainability, as you have said, we are very committed on the issue, and we, through our president, we are part of Food for Climate League. We will have a session dedicated to Food for Climate League, that is a special project for research and communication on sustainability in the food sector. So thank you so much, Max, and we will be in touch in the next days. I will close this session with the last speaker, that is Mohamed Hamze, from Bites of Transformation, that provided us a short video to greet us and wrap up this session.
First, I have to thank you for this initiative and giving space for young people and researchers to be a part of this game-changing event. I will briefly present myself. I'm Mohamed. I will be representing the Bites of Transformation project. I'm a Lebanese researcher. Past a couple of years working in Africa, undergone my master's in land and water resources management in Italy, and now pursuing my PhD in the House of Remote Sensing in Montpellier. In the Center of Remote Sensing, we aim to derive parameters from satellite and radar platforms using artificial intelligence to deliver an advice to support the farmers and governments in the decision-making process. Actually, in the manifesto we elaborated in Bites of Transformation, BOT, we always link that digitalization to knowledge, which is in my opinion right. Digitalization is not a new concept. In fact, everything relies on data that was present much even before inventing the smartphones or touch screens even. Nowadays, due to the intensive use of technology, the way we elaborate and analyze the data has developed. Moreover, the action tracks toward SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, highlighted the significance of digitalization and innovation as solutions to improve the current state of the food system. As you already know, the structure of the food system is dynamic and driven by complex trends, such as urbanization, population growth, climate change, and so on. Actors in the food system are also interdependent and can impact each other's incentives and or capacities to act. Thus, The complexity of food systems requires a holistic and coordinated approach, because the challenges to achieve sustainable development along the food chain and meet future food demand require integrated actions taken by all stakeholders at both public and private sectors. In addition to the increasing quantities of food lost among the food chain, reside the problem of lack of accessibility and affordability in many parts of the world. A large portion of food is actually wasted at post-harvest and distribution levels before even the consumption, and never make it to the plates of consumers. This comes at a high price, especially because agriculture is an important resource-consuming sector. For instance, I will speak about some facts. Agriculture withdraws 70% of fresh water, and it's responsible for more than 30% of land use. As a rule of thumb, 1/3 of food produced is never eaten, which represent a huge waste of natural resources, human labor, and financial capital. What about reciprocating this statement and think about how to reduce the losses in natural resources used in food production? And I mean by that, the resources use optimization by increasing the efficiency of inputs in food production, which leads to lower the impact of food loss and inequities among the food chain. The mitigation of current challenges we already spoke about requires concrete actions, actually, to respond to the need of the food system's resilience to future shocks. Through the concept of precision agriculture, efficiency could be increased by producing more using less external or natural resources. Remote sensing and artificial intelligence has been defined as like tools for precision agriculture as a part of the game-changing solutions toward achieving the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) of the United Nations. Speaking about remote sensing, actually, scientists are applying information technology and satellite-based technologies to identify, analyze, monitor, and manage the spatial and temporal variability of agronomic traits in the fields. Thus, the derived data can assist decision makers and end users in identifying, for example, the cropped areas, estimating the irrigation needs and schedules, as well as defining the most important thing, management strategies. But more importantly, it will help in deriving statistics for annual cash crops or economic crops to support sustainable national food security policies, which is vital to build like a more resilient decision support system. On the other hand, we have elaborated an idea with the 3 of my colleagues or participants in the BOT of a forecasting model that accounts for all the externalities and interactions among the food chain to predict the future food demand. That sounds weird, but the model uses inputs of what is achievable. The model uses inputs of parameters related to socio-economical, environmental, and health conditions, as well as agricultural practices, policies, and regulations adopted in a specific geographical area. Eventually, I think the need for a food system future state on information about the future is important to develop strategies and policies, take the right decision now to help the future in order to avoid any unfortunate impacts of future risks and shocks like pandemics, for example, the COVID-19, wars, and political and economical instabilities. Those tools, in the end, finally, those tools can
Okay, so thank you so much. It was a fantastic session, and we have been in Italy and now in UK, and now we are ready to go in Washington, D.C. in the United States. So I will leave this virtual stage to the president of Future Food Institute, Sara Roversi. Thanks a lot, and keep following the marathon using the hashtag Food for Earth. Bye.